So yeah, my name's David Crooks. I'm an education support officer for digital learning, and previously was a primary teacher both in the Highlands and in Edinburgh. And if you want to get in contact with me, my email address is there, and also you can find me on Twitter. Just to run through a couple of things that we're going to cover today. Stuart and I have been in dialogue about how I can maybe support and a couple of things that might make learning from home or remote learning a little bit easier, but also some of these things I use in my classroom day to day as well, so they can kind of be integrated once we move back into the classroom. So we're going to look at Google Forms. I'm sure lots of you are aware of Google Forms and as a survey. Some might know, might not know about creating self-marking forms and assigning them through Classroom. So we're going to look at some of the features of forms and how they can be self-marking. Then really exciting new tool that's come around more recently. I'm sure everyone's aware of voice notes and using them personally, but we're going to look at Mote, which is a voice note app for feedback. A couple of things we're going to look at is we're going to look at signing in, adding this extension to your browser, creating some voice notes, using a really useful tool built in called the Mote book, and then integrating Mote with Google Classroom. So that's really exciting. That's going to take quite a chunk of this morning looking at that. And then following that, we're going to look at Kahoot, which I always think of as the fun way to assess. So it's almost similar to Google Forms, but in a slightly different way. So it's good to have a little bit of variety. And in the last lockdown, when I was teaching in Edinburgh, Kahoot was one of the main ways in which we got kids engaged with their learning. And as I've already said, Jamboard is there for any questions, so please feel free to pop a question in. It's in the chat. Okay. So we're just going to get cracking. I'm going to start with Google Forms straight away. What I'm going to do is, if there are any questions, I'll link back to the Jamboard after every section. So after Google Forms, I'll link back to the Jamboard and see if there's any questions related to Google Forms. But please feel free, after I kind of give you a little bit of an insight in Google Forms, I'll give an opportunity to ask any questions, which might be good for the recorded side of things for the teachers who are going to pick up on this later on today. So to access Google Forms, there's a lot of different ways we can access the Google apps. I tend to access everything through the 9 dots or the hashtag, however you see it. So if we click on here and then find Forms, there's another way of going through Google Forms, which is through your Drive and through New. The only problem with that is it opens up a form as a survey, not necessarily a form as a quiz, which is what we're looking to do today. So when that opens up, a lot of you might be aware of using Google Forms for maybe interaction, communication with parents and with your SLT interacting with you. And that tends to be the blank survey form. The blank quiz is what we're going to look at today, and it's a self-marking form. And I'm not going to go through every single aspect because there's so much to it. Okay, so I'm just going to call this in service, the title, and in the form description you can add a little bit of description for your pupils. As such, sometimes I like to use this space as for learning intentions and success criteria, if that's applicable. I'm just going to walk through a couple of the ways that we can ask questions. So I like to call this the floating toolbar on the right-hand side. Now, I call it the floating toolbar because as you populate your forms with questions, the toolbar kind of automatically slides down the page, and it's always accessible for you. So the plus button, really simply to add a question. You can import questions from previous quizzes that you've already used. This is to add your title or description if you're already down the page and you've been populating with questions already. You can add images and videos, and you can also add sections. Now, I'm going to focus on a couple of 3 actual features today. We're going to add a question. We're going to look at 3 different styles of questions in which you can use. And to be honest, with an hour and lots of content, I chose these because these were the most popular style of questions and the most popular features that I used within forms for my pupils. So if we just go ahead and add first question. The first thing to note is that each question kind of falls under a different category. So we've got lots of different categories that you can ask for, and this is the style of answer in which you're asking the pupils to complete. Short answer and paragraph are exactly what they say. Multiple choice. The difference between multiple choice and check boxes is that when you choose multiple choice, there's only one answer that a pupil can choose. With check boxes, there's more than one answer. So, for example, if you're looking for the 3 primary colors and you gave a list of primary colors, you wouldn't use the multiple choice because there's 3 answers. You would use check boxes so that they could pick the 3 of the 10 correct colors. Drop-down menu is almost just like multiple choice. It's just a different style. File upload is when you're asking a pupil to upload work or they're working out. In the previous lockdown, I used forms lots and lots for maths. And I used the file upload at the end of every form because I asked pupils to take a picture of their working out and then upload it as the file so that if it was multiple choice questions, I could see how they were working out their answers, and that worked really well. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the other ones. That they're really useful, but I'm aware that there's a lot to learn on a Monday morning, so I'm just going to stick with these ones for now. Okay. So if I go back to the question, forms is actually quite clever because if it knows the answer to your question, it will suggest your answer for the answer key. So I'm going to use a planned question. And my question is, how many years did Nelson Mandela spend in jail? And you can see that underneath the suggested correct answer, because Google has already searched for the answer, is 27 years. So we can input that into our multiple choice section and then add a couple of other ones in around that answer. And automatically, because Google has found out and Forms knows that the answer is 27 years, it already selects your answer as 27 years and you can move on from there. If it didn't know the answer, for example, if you asked a question that didn't have a suggested answer, then it would be up to you to select that answer as the correct one. Okay? And we can do that through the answer key. So you can see that it's already selected as 27 years, but if that was wrong, you could select this as the correct answer. Okay? Another little trick on Google Forms is that you can actually add points, a point system. I tend to just keep 1 point per answer, and it gives the pupils kind of a cumulative total at the end. I will talk about a couple of little factors that might affect this point system, but I'll cover that as we move on. So back to the floating toolbar, I'm going to add one more question. I'm actually going to add a couple more questions. This time, I am going to add an image, and the image is going to be the question. Okay, so by adding this image, I'm just going to add a simple flag. So if we, sorry, it went a little bit quick there. So on your floating toolbar, if you want to add an image as a part of your question, you click on the 4th button down, add an image, and it will give you a few options. You can upload an image, you can take one on your camera, you can enter by URL. If you have Google Photos linked to your forms, then you can access your own Google Photos. Equally, you might have a folder in your Google Drive that you've done as a project and you want to use those images. But what I tend to use mostly is a Google image search. So I'm just going to search the flag of South Africa. And I just select and insert. And the image title that you can see above is the space for your question. So this is the flag. And you can see this is the flag of, and they can answer South Africa. Okay. Moving on down, we can use images in another way, because we can have images attached to our multiple choice answers. So for example, going back to our multiple choice question, the question might be, spot the flag of Scotland. And in our multiple choice, rather than just a text, if you see at the right hand side, you can add an image in there as well. Okay, so rather than your multiple choice being text-based answers, your multiple choice questions can be image-based. So if we add an image in there, you do it the exact same way as you did for your first image search. So we go Google image search, flag of Scotland, and we can insert here as well. And you'll see how it shows up a little differently. Okay, it shows up as an option of multiple choice, and we can add another. Same way, we go to the right hand side and add an image. Use our Google search, and we'll pick this one and insert. Okay, and you can add those in for lots of options. You can there's really no limit. Okay, and again, once you've done that, we can use the answer key, and we can highlight option 1 as the correct answer, and we can adjust our points as so. Okay. Next, moving on to one final question. I did say that there was a couple of things that kind of interrupt or don't allow the scoring system to flow as easily as possible. So with a short answer text, you'll often find that short answer texts sometimes pick up as incorrect answers because of the way that the answer key is being made. So for example, if I asked, explain the properties of explain the properties of an equilateral triangle. If I was asking for a short answer for that, that gives the opportunity for the pupils to write a short answer text based on your question. Okay, within the answer key this time, you can add a physically correct answer. Okay, so it might be 3 equal sides and 3 equal angles, and all sides and angles equal. Okay, the issue with this is that often pupils must type their answer the exact same as your answer in order for that to be marked correctly. Okay, so you could have, if you have mark all answers as other answers as incorrect, it means if they wrote 3 equal sides and 3 equal angles, but they wrote the word 3 instead of the number 3, then forms would mark them incorrect. Okay, so it's just to be a factor to be aware of that whenever you make short answer questions, it is very, very specific. Okay, so what I tend to do is I don't add too many short answered questions in a form. I do always give the opportunity of short answer questions, but what I tend to do after the forms have been submitted and the assignment is all handed in, I tend to go through and look at the answers that they've given for short answer and then award points from there. And I'll show you an example of one that I have completed, so that you can see what the answers look like in a self-marking quiz. Okay, so it's just to be aware of the short answer and long answer is kind of a little bit more open for mistakes, should we say, rather than the multiple choice. So following those 3 styles of questions, or 4 styles of questions, we have the multiple choice, we have check boxes, which I haven't gone over. We've got the use of images and videos as a couple of forms of questions, and also some of the maybe hurdles that you might come across with regards to short answer responses. Just to show you, for anyone who hasn't created a self-marking quiz on forms before, this is one that I had created with my primary 7 class in the last lockdown. We were looking at the human body, and this was my quiz. As you can see, a lot of it is multiple choice. Then there's some options for long answer text, and then back to multiple choice and some true or false as well. It looks pretty straightforward, just like any form that maybe you've ever seen. But with the responses, this is what you get from a self-marking quiz. So this is what forms will do for you without you having to do anything at all. I haven't actually touched this form. I created it, assigned it, and then I had a quick look at it after I got my responses. So what forms will do, it will generate like a bit of an insight to the form itself. So you can see from each question, it gives you an answer or an idea of the correct responses. So my class got 19 out of 19 here. You can see where some pupils went wrong. They maybe got a little bit of a mistake, and so on. And then this is how it shows you the short response answers or the long response answers, depending on what you've assigned. So explain what red blood cells do. We can kind of scan through this and see if anyone's got the incorrect answer. Same as what you can do here, and so on. Okay, so we can analyze the data, the insight of all this data, all this assessment kind of collectively. There are a couple of other options. You can do it on a question by question basis, and you can also do it on an individual basis. So you can look at the responder number one, you can see what they've done. And if you've assigned this through Google Classroom, it'll be much easier to see who's done it. So you don't have to ask in every form, what is your name or the name of the pupil, because you'll have seen clearly which pupil has assigned that or has handed that work in via Google Classroom. So you don't need to worry about it being named. So you can look at it on a word by word or question by question basis, and you can see how the correct answers show up in green, and the short word answers kind of need a little bit of assessment. And this is also where you can add in the points. So for example, explain what red blood cells do. If they've got that question correct, you can add 1 point. Okay. Lastly, for some people who love to use Excel spreadsheets, I'm not one of those people, but the forms also has the functionality of exporting this into Google Sheets. So you can do that, and you can also use the sheets in Classroom, which will give you a bit of an insight as to how pupils are doing and what they're handing in. Okay, I'm just going to pop back to the Meet now. I'm going to stop presenting for a second. First of all, I'd like to apologise for the start. I didn't realise I kicked myself out, so apologies for that bit of a mix-up. Guys, I'm really conscious that in an hour we've got lots to cover, and I'm talking really fast and going through it really fast. So does anyone want to ask any questions about forms just now, or are you happy for me to move on to Mote? I'll have a quick look in the Jamboard. Okay. So I'll come back to questions at the end. If you're happy for me to move on to Mote, that's great. There's just one thing about Mote that I just wanted to kind of flag up just before, and I saw that just on the chat there quickly, it was already brought up by someone. Mote is a voice feedback tool that's used really well within all high schools in East Lothian Council, but it's not used so much in primary schools. And the reason for that being is that extensions within your council laptop are actually blocked, so you can't add the Mote extension to your East Lothian Council laptop. And how high schools have got around that, because they've kind of seen the use of this. The use of Mote within feedback and how it kind of streamlines things. They actually assign teachers a Chromebook, because a Chromebook within East Lothian Council has full access to extensions. So if this was something moving forward that you know this is something I'm really keen to use. I know there's a spare Chromebook in school. If there is a spare Chromebook, I know everyone's in a different situation. But if the content that I show you next around Mote and how to use it and how to give feedback is interesting to you, it is to be noted that you can only use it through a Chromebook, not through your East Lothian Council laptop. So it's just a wee disclaimer, just in case a lot of people are going to go ahead and try and download it on their council laptop and realize that it doesn't work. Okay, so if you have access to a Chromebook, that's really good. You can use this. And Stuart was very keen for me to share this because he knows that lots of schools are making really good use of this. I'll just share my screen again. And we'll look at Mote this time. Stuart, if you could just let me know whenever you can see my screen again, that would be great.
Fab, that's popping up now, David.
Perfect. Thank you, Stuart. So yeah, Mote is it's just note with an M. So as I said before, it's a voice note feedback tool. It's really, really useful and really cool. And I used it quite a lot with my class, and I think it gave more of a personal level of feedback, because not only were kids getting feedback on the work that they were doing, but they could also hear your voice, which in times like this is maybe a lot more special to kids than we might think. So the way to access Mote is really simple. If you look for the Mote extension on Google, and then it comes up with Mote voice notes and feedback. If we access it through that, it is literally an extension that attaches to your Chrome browser. It's not an app, so it's a little bit different. And I'm just going to show you what it kind of looks like on the Chrome Web Store. So once you search, the only difference that you would see when you search this on a Chromebook is you'd see Mote voice notes and feedback, and it would be add to Chrome here. Because I've already added it, obviously it's going to ask me to remove it. And the little icon, the little M, should appear up here. If your little icon doesn't appear, the little jigsaw puzzle is your extensions. And as you can see, Screencastify and Mote I've pinned to my browser, so they'll always appear there. So if I unpin Mote, you would see it disappeared. So I'll just pin it again so that we have access. Okay. Mote works really, really well in Google Docs, in Google Slides, and in Google Classroom. So you can actually leave voice comments on your Google Classroom rather than a comment as such. And I'll show you how to do that as well. So just a couple of things. I'm going to use this abandoned school document that I received from a pupil maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm just going to show you how Mote can kind of assist you in giving some feedback, and also the Mote books, how it's really, really useful for not having to leave the same feedback consistently. Okay, so if we look at this document, the first thing you can see is today and smashed are both spelt incorrectly. So I just want to leave a little voice note for spelling. I've already done this just because I just wanted to show you how it looked up on the right hand side, but I am going to show you how to leave a voice note. And while no one likes the sound of their own voice, it is very different for everyone else. So as soon as we get past that inhibition of leaving voice notes, you can see it's really, really useful. So I've left my voice notes here. We can play them. Check for spelling. Why not try using spell checker on Google Docs? Okay, you can see my very, very monotone voice there, giving a little bit of advice on spelling, and maybe suggesting that they use spell checker via Google Docs for their work. Moving on down, we literally read about another 40 words, and you can see that there's another spelling mistake, and you think, oh, I'm going to have to leave another voice note to say the exact same thing, but you don't, because as you can hear in the next one, which is my check for spelling, why not try using spell checker on Google Docs? So the exact same voice note has been left for the exact same error. Now, while you maybe don't want to have a list of 20 spell check voice notes for children. It is often the case where we select some words that we think that these pupils should maybe be spelling correctly, and those are the ones that we address. For maybe adventurous vocabulary, we might not correct them on that all the time. So I'm just going to show you how to leave a little voice note. So I can see here the end of a sentence is started with the word we, but there's no capital letter with the letter W, so we need to address that. And I'm going to show you how for common errors like this, for full stops and capital letters, we can create one voice note, add it to our Mote book, and then we can reuse that voice note rather than having to use it or create a voice note every single time. So I've highlighted the word. I'm going to go into the comments at the top right-hand side beside the share button, and that opens up our comment history. I don't want to use any of these comments. I want to add a new one. So I click on comment, and you can see this little box appears. Okay. It's really simple to use because the logo or the icon of the Mote DM is almost like your playback button. It's your record button. So in this piece of feedback, I'm going to click on the button and I'm going to give a little feedback on the capital letter. Remember that at the start of a new sentence, you need a capital letter. So we've created our voice note, but there's still three options: comment, cancel, and then this little editing tool or review tool. Okay. If you're happy with a one-off comment and you've recorded it and you just want to get it out there, then hitting comment will make it look like the two comments that I've already left. Okay. If you're unsure or you want to save it to your Mote book because you maybe want to reuse that comment, then we hit the review tool. Okay. Remember that at the start of a new sentence, you need a capital letter. Okay. So if we want to save it to our Mote book, we hit save as, and I'm just going to call this capital letter at the start of the sentence. If I hit save, that's saved that to our Mote book. Okay. I'm going to exit, and I'm going to hit comment. Okay. And as we move down the list or the piece of work, you might notice another spelling mistake. So I can see the word so. I see that they've used a lot of O's to add a little bit of emphasis, but I want to remind them that that's not how you spell the word so. Okay. I've already created this spelling Mote. I've saved it to my Mote book, I hope. So I'm going to, rather than recording the voice note again, I'm going to leave a comment, but I'm going to use one of my already existing comments. Okay, so we go to comments, add a new comment, and it's the same thing. The only thing is, if you can see, it's click to record or hold for Mote book. So if I click and hold, you can see that it opens up your little Mote book. And from the last one that I showed you, I saved my capitals for a new sentence. Previously, I saved one for spelling as well. So rather than having to record again and again and again your voice notes, we save them to our Mote book, and that's it done. So just to go over that again, it's new comment, add new comment, and then on the logo, we click to record or we hold for our Mote book. Okay, so the more we use Mote book, the more our kind of voice note library will gather, and the easier it becomes to give verbal feedback on a document. Can I just ask if anyone has any questions just now? Does anyone want me to go over that again, or are we all okay? If there's a consensus of nods, Stuart, can you let me know, and I'll just I'll continue.
Yeah, it's mostly like nods, David.
Yeah, cool. Another thing I'm just going to show you just really quickly is how we can use Motebook in Classroom. So I'm going to go back to my drive, back to the 9 dots, and I'm going to open up Google Classroom. I don't know if many of you on the call are part of the East Lothian Digital Support and Resources Classroom. If you're not, you're more than welcome to join us, and I can share the code with Stuart, and Stuart can send it out across you guys. If you are, then I'm just going to show you how we can kind of integrate Mote into the classroom that you have with your students. Just one thing to make you aware of, when you're creating a new announcement, for example here, Motebook does not work. Okay, so if you're announcing something to your class, Motebook isn't integratable to this part of Classroom. Okay, it has to be a text-based announcement. Okay, but as you might have noticed, if you're leaving a class comment, Motebook, apologies, Motebook is here, and you've got a 90-second comment that you can leave. So it works the exact same way as it did in Docs, and it works in Docs just as it does in Slides, with your Motebook kind of carrying over to each one. Okay, so we can click and leave a voice note. I'm not going to leave a voice note because it's very active, this Google Classroom, but it's the same. Click to record and hold for Motebook, and you can post voice note comments in your Google Classroom as well. There's just one thing to note about Mote when you're using it. A lot of teachers asked me that I've kind of shared this with is oh, but if the pupils don't have Mote as an extension, then how can they access my voice notes? The pupils will still be able to access your voice notes. The only difference that it will be for the pupils is, rather than it showing up with a play button, it will just be a simple link that they click on, and it would just open a window with their voice note. So it's really easy. And I've tested it out with a couple of people who don't have Mote assigned into their or added onto their Chrome browser, and it works really, really seamlessly. It's literally just a simple other window that opens up with their voice note. So you don't have to worry about telling your pupils to download Mote in order for you to use it. If you have access, then your pupils have access. Okay. I'm just keeping an eye on time. We're going to move on. If there's no questions about that, or if there are questions, we can come back to them at the end. The last thing that I wanted to share with you guys today is about Kahoot. I'm not sure how many people have used Kahoot before. I'm just going to go on to Google. The easiest way to access Kahoot is just through Google, and it's really nice that you can use your Edubuzz account to create a Kahoot account. So I always called Kahoot the fun way of assessing, because it almost has the same properties as Google Forms and Microsoft Forms, but it just does it in a really fun way. And Kahoot have been really good and really proactive about adapting the platform to fit with remote learning. So I've got quite a few ways that I can explain where you can use Kahoot in the classroom. You can use it on a live lesson, or you can assign it as an assignment within your Google Classroom and then review the results at the end of the week. So there's quite a few options. This is something that I used in the classroom. I used it virtually, and I use personally as well. So you can sign up, as I said, with your Edubuzz account. It's really easy if you can sign in through Google. I'm going to log in. I have a personal account and a teacher account, so I'm going to use my personal account because I use it quite often. When you click sign in, it should ask you if you want to sign in through Google, and that'll prompt you to use your Edubuzz account. I should already be signed in, so once it loads up, we're just going to look at 3 different aspects of Kahoot. So the one good thing about Kahoot, not there's just one good thing, but my personal favorite aspect or feature of Kahoot is the Discover mode. And the Discover mode basically means that there's millions and hundreds of thousands of Kahoots that have already been made, and once they're published, they're accessible for everyone. Okay, so I'm going to put Stuart on the spot in about 5 minutes, but I'm going to tell him the question now so that hopefully this works and Kahoot shines bright. But Stuart, in about a few minutes, whenever we look at the Discover mode, could you just give me a topic that you've taught in the last year? It could be Vikings, it could be Egyptians, it could be fractions, anything. So just think of one topic and we'll see if Kahoot can come up with a quiz for you related to that subject area. Okay. While Stuart's thinking of that, I'm going to talk about two other areas. Okay. So the first one is create. And like Microsoft Forms, it's really, really simple to create Kahoots. Kahoot is only multiple choice answers. Okay. And this is your creation screen. Okay. So your question might be, once my laptop allows me to type a question. Here we go. So a question might be true or false. Are there 54 people on this meet? The last time I checked, that answer was true. It might be more, it might be less now, hopefully not less. So you can write in the question, true or false, select your answer. And on the right-hand side, you can select your time limit. 10 seconds is usually a pretty standard for me. And I use the standard points because Kahoot organizes the points. It's 1,000 points a question. And after every question, kids can see the leaderboard. They can see where they are. They can see how many questions they've got right in a row. They can see who's above them and below them, and they can see the top 5. So it's really nice to have that point system. It gets a bit of healthy competitiveness going. There are lots of different question types. The only thing I would make you aware of is that with a free account, like all of these businesses, the free account has limited accessibility. So if you see this little icon, the little crown icon, it means that that it's a paid for service. So at the minute, quiz and true or false are the only ones that you can access through a free subscription. Although I think if you log in with your EduBuzz account, because it's educational, they will give you free access as the schools are closed. So that's something to be might be worth looking into if you're going to use Kahoot. Again, you can add questions down the left-hand side, and it follows the same suit. Once you're finished, you can hit done, and you can save it, and you can enter your Kahoot title at the top. Okay. I'm just going to exit that. I know that the Kahoot makes it as easy as possible to create questions and create quizzes. And I'm going to explain to you why I'm kind of skipping through the create part, because there is a better way to use Kahoots than creating your own all the time. And no one ever likes trying to reinvent the wheel. So if there's lots of Kahoots already created, then hopefully there's a Kahoot there for you that you can edit and adapt to suit you. Stuart, would you be happy enough to give me one of the title of topic that you've taught in the last year or so?
Yeah, let's just go fractions. Let's be safe. Let's hope that there's definitely something there on the fractions. I
thought you were going to hit me with something really obscure and make this tricky, but I think we can do fractions. So I did that a little bit quickly. I clicked on the Discover button that was at the top left-hand side of the menu. So Create was the first aspect we looked at, and then Discover is what we're on now, which you can see just in the top of the page. Now, Stuart's given me a topic of fractions. I'm going to type in fractions to find me Kahoots about. Sorry, my internet's a little slow here. So we'll go fractions, and we'll hit enter to search. And you can see that there's already been fractions created by lots and lots and lots of people. So we can scroll down all of these suggestions of fractions. Okay, we can go to show more results. And I'm just going to pick random fractions. Here we go, fractions. 12 questions. Sounds about what I'd like. It's a top pick, which means that lots of people have used it. And what I'm going to do is I can see that it's okay. I maybe don't like the wording. Some of the questions don't really apply to what I'm trying to do. But let's say, for argument's sake, 10 out of the 15 questions suit me, which is better than starting from scratch because we've now got 10 questions to start with, and we can maybe add five more of our own. So what you can do is you can edit a Kahoot, and by clicking edit, it will ask you to duplicate the Kahoot, which basically means that you're going to make a copy for yourself of these 15 questions, and then you're free to delete or adapt these questions without affecting the master copy. Okay. So if I hit edit, sorry, my laptop's a little slow here. If I hit the edit button, it should ask me to duplicate first. Apologies. Yeah, so it's asked me to duplicate first. So if we hit duplicate, then it'll create our, sorry, it's running a little bit slow, but if we hit the edit button, it'll ask us to duplicate. It'll basically create a copy of the quiz for ourselves, in which we're free to edit as we want. Okay, and then from there you can assign it to your Google Classroom. I'm just going to show you a couple of the ways in which we can play Kahoot as well. So finally, I can show you that this is your duplication. It's saved, so you can add questions, you can delete questions as you wish. Okay, just to go back to Kahoot, the third option. So the first one we had create, which was creating your own quizzes from scratch, which is really good, amazing. But the discover button just is a good place to start to find maybe a template that suits you, that can maybe tick a few boxes that you were going to do yourself, and it saves you a little bit of time. So the discover mode's always the place in which I start. If I can't find something in discover mode, then I tend to create it myself, understanding that it just takes a little bit more time. Okay. So the third thing from create to discover, the next thing I'm going to show is Kahoot. Okay. So the Kahoots are all of the saved Kahoots that you've used previously. So I've got quite a lot. I actually have lots of ones that have been shared with me that kids have created as a task in itself. So it's not just playing Kahoots, but also creating Kahoots as a learning experience in itself. And kids can do that easily too. So I'm just going to go to sport just randomly. And I'm just going to show you a couple of the options that you have for children or students playing Kahoot. Now, they can be posted really, really easily to Google Classroom. I'm just going to close a couple of these windows to see if my internet will speed up any. Okay, so once you have your Kahoot, hopefully my sport Kahoot loads up here now. Yeah. You have the option to edit, so you can edit any of the questions you have, and then once you're done, you can play the Kahoot. Apologies, this is very, very slow. We're almost there and we have 10 minutes to go, so hopefully we have time for a few questions at the end. Try it this way. Okay, Let's give it one more shot, see if we can show you how to play Kahoot. Apologies again that my internet is running a little bit slow. So if we access our Kahoot again here, we should have a list of the Kahoots that we have available. Okay, so by clicking into the Sport Kahoot, we can edit the questions, make sure that they're all ready to go through these tools. But if we hit play, you have two options. You've got teach and you've got assign. Now, teach used to be that teach was just for using in the classroom, but actually Kahoot have kind of adapted a couple of the features and allowed it so that you can actually play live games together with learners over video and in class. So over video, it's really important to know that how this works for the student. When you hit teach, it will give you a game pin, and that's how pupils will access the Kahoot. They will go through the same motions. They don't have to create an account. They don't have to use anything. So they just access Kahoot Play via Google, or if you've embedded the link onto Google Classroom, they can access it through that way. When they have access to the game pin and they type in the game pin to their laptop, phone, tablet, the only issue with playing it live is that if pupils are using a phone, they will not be able to see both screens at one time, and that's the issue with Kahoot. You actually need two screens, so you need to see the teacher screen, but you also need to see your own screen. So if kids are accessing from a Chromebook, it's really easy to do a split screen, and they can drag and have two screens open at one time, one side to see the questions and one side to see the answers. So there are there's a few little technicalities within doing it live that do complicate things a little bit. Personally, I use it for live sessions, but my class were really, really well used to using Kahoot within the classroom. If this isn't something that's been established in a classroom, then it might be that the assign side of Kahoot is much easier to get pupils up and running with that. So my advice wouldn't be to jump in straight away and use Kahoot teaching in a live lesson, but maybe to assign a few Kahoots, get your class used to using them, get them used to putting in the game pin or accessing through the link, and then going from there. So those are the two options. If we choose to do assign, you can see that there's some options. The players should, so we set a deadline. Players should complete, say, by Friday, so they have a week to do it. The question timer, I often took it off because I quite like the fact that pupils could complete it at their own speed. But if it was a form of assessment, the only problem with the question timer being off is that pupils can always go and Google the answer, which is kind of the day and age we live in. So if you were using it for a little bit of an assessment to see how pupils were getting on, then that's great. But if it was something that you were going to use, for example, if Stuart was doing his fractions and it was the end of a kind of a block of learning that you wanted to actually gauge how pupils had understood, then the question timer might be an appropriate method to give time on each question. You can randomize the question order or the answer order, which means if you put in 1, 2, 3, 4, Kahoot will just regenerate them for every pupil. And you can also put in a nickname generator, which means pupils don't have to guess a nickname, it just gives it for them. Okay. Once you hit create, if you're happy with all the settings, Kahoot will generate an individual link that you can then share on Google Classroom. And it links really nicely to Google Classroom, actually, because depending on how you want to share it, if it was through an assignment, if it was just as an announcement, you can do that however you like. So this is how we invite more players. You can copy the URL, you can pop it into your classroom, or you can put it into an assignment on your classwork tab, however you want. But also, you can click directly into Google Classroom. If your classroom is linked with your laptop, which I would assume it would be, there's a few options there of how you can kind of distribute the Kahoot directly with Classroom and really easily. So you choose which classroom you want to share it with. So I'll share it with the drama room. And we can choose an action. So if you want to pop it in as an assignment, it will redirect you to the assignment block, and you can put in all your details as normal. If you want to do it as a question or an announcement or even class material, you can do it directly from Kahoot in this window. Okay, and that's the assign button. That's to use it as, for example, if you created a Kahoot, you made it on Monday and you wanted it to be handed in on Friday as a weekly assessment, they have to complete it during the week, or a daily one, depending on how you work it within your school and classrooms, then that can be kind of altered. If you're a Kahoot user, then by all means you can do the live version. But my advice would be to assign a few, get your students used to using these as a form of assessment or a form of learning, and then maybe introduce Kahoot to a live lesson further down the line. Okay. Again, I've apologized quite a few times for slow internet, for being muted at the start, but I also apologize for me speaking to you for almost an hour there. Guys, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy for me to answer them now if you want to ask verbally, and I can give you a little bit of feedback. I'm really open. I'm a primary school teacher. I love digital learning. I love experimenting with new stuff. And I hope either Forms, Mote, or Kahoot would be useful for you guys. But equally, I'm very honest. I don't know the answer to everything. But if you have a question that I don't know the answer to, I'll find out the answer and I'll get it to you. So please feel free to ask a question now, or pop it in the Jamboard, and I'll send Stuart over my compiled answers, and he can share them with you when they're ready. Does anyone have any questions, or no? Silence is good, I hope. Stuart, as far as it goes, I think that's me.
Super.
So
brilliant. Thank you so much for this morning, David, and I think it's really good for us all to get a face to go with the name. And thank you for being so welcoming and people getting in touch with you, because I think that's something that we'll be taking you up on. So that's been really useful this morning.
No problem, guys. I just wanted to make you aware. I didn't know. I don't know. Stuart and I had kind of talked about it with regards to the West OS and the National E-Learning Offer. I don't know how many of you are aware of the National E-Learning Offer and how that kind of affects East Lothian schools. But there's a platform called West OS that now East Lothian Council have full access to. It's a national offer which all councils in Scotland will be given access to, and it actually gives you recorded content. So teachers all across Scotland, especially in East Goyle, and all across the local authorities, have been creating recorded content in line with the Curriculum for Excellence to allow teachers who are delivering remote learning to have these short videos. They're between 6 and 10 minutes, and it gives lots of input on all curricular areas, but it also gives little activities that kids can be doing along the way. So while it's a 10-minute recorded video, the pupils might get 2 minutes in and there might be a little assignment for them to do, so they can pause the video, then they can do the assignment, then they can click on the video to watch again. Now, all East Lothian teachers now have access to this. It is accessible through Glow, which I know is not the most popular word in East Lothian, because we all use Google. But there's a training session for this. It's coming up for East Lothian teachers. I'll send the link to Stuart, but from the feedback that we've got from other local authorities within the SEAC, it's been met really, really well. And I suppose one of the things that teachers say is they feel like it's cheating because they're using a recorded lesson, but it's not cheating. It's there to act as a support framework for you guys, and it's been created by teachers for teachers. It's now all Education Scotland are on board. I know John Swinney mentions it in his Deputy First Minister's questions now. So this is Scotland's way forward for remote learning, for accessing pupils who maybe can't come to school for a lot of reasons. The obvious ones at the minute are the pandemic, but moving forward, it's going to be a national project. So I'll send the details over to Stuart, and if you think it's going to be really useful, you can sign up through Eventbrite and get access through there. But I couldn't. I'm saying this as part of the core team for West OS, but I couldn't advise signing up to it enough as a teacher, because it's really, really, really useful. There's over 1,000 videos there already from P1 to S6. So it's really worth having a wee look at. Guys, can I just say thank you so much for having me today? It's been great. I hope it's been useful. I'm a minute over, so I went against my word and finished a minute late, so I apologize for that. But thanks so much. And as Stuart said, he can forward on my email, and I'm happy to help with anything, or even pop on a meet in the future to help with using Kahoot or Mote or forums. So please, yeah, get in touch.
Great. Thanks, David.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.